Okay, so today we're going to be working with basic op art different patterns, and I'm going to show you how to make a bunch of different patterns. Each image will be divided up into a different short video. This one is the one that we're going to start with here. You have this diamond pattern, and it's going to create that optical illusion, which is created by those high contrast and those different directions of your lines. So for this, I have a piece of paper. Now you can take a regular 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, fold it in half, fold it in half again, and you get about the size of a note card. And you can do that with this. I'm going to use a square piece of paper just so you can see it a little bit easier. I have a ruler. If you don't have a ruler, you can do a straight edge. I have a pencil. You can do this entire thing in pencil. You do not have to use marker to outline it if you want to shade it in. I just like to use the Sharpie marker because it makes these lines bold. An Expo marker or dry erase marker does the same thing. And then a marker, a Sharpie. If you don't have a black Sharpie, you of course can use color. These are for practice, which is why we are not going to measure everything out perfectly. If we were doing this for a final, then we would use our math skills to divide everything out evenly, but since this is for practice, we are going to draw this. You will draw everything with pencil, but since you can't see the pencil very well when I'm drawing with it, I'll show you. When I draw with a pencil, it doesn't always show up very well in the camera. So I'm going to switch and draw all of mine with marker. Again, you would draw yours with pencil and then go over it. So the first thing that I'm going to do is draw my lines from edge to edge. You want to get them as close to even as possible. But again, because we're not measuring each individual line, we're going to do our best to estimate. I come through and I draw my lines from edge to edge. And if you are measuring these are about 1/4 of an inch in size. You can see mine are perfectly straight, but again, this is for practice, so that's okay. I'll draw all the way until I get to the edge of my paper. Your paper is probably smaller, but I wanted to have a larger sheet so that you could see my lines better. And you can see they're really uneven, but that's okay. We're going to do the best we can here, right? So that's it. That's your very first step. Very, very simple. Now for this part of the step right here, now we're going to draw our diamond. Again, if we were doing this with a ruler and making this our final, we would measure the half point of each edge of our paper and connect those lines for the half point. It would be very important that these are in the middle of that edge. But since we are estimating, I can see that this here is about the middle, as well as here and here, because this is for our practice. So then I'm going to connect those lines. My paper is square, and since my paper is square, my diamond is going to be more square and even, more like a rhombus. But if you have a rectangular piece of paper, or like you're doing a note card, you can see this is going to be more like your diamond, and that is okay. This is just to practice and get used to drawing the optical illusions, those alternating lines. Now, I like to mark what I am going to color so that I don't get confused. This is a step that not everybody does, but it prevents all mistakes. So I'm going to put a mark in every area that's going to be black or going to be a color, or with a pencil, however you're going to shade it in. And notice it goes black, white inside of the diamond, black, and then it alternates in that pattern. So I would have black, white, black, white, black, white, and then you alternate it like that every time so that you get that pattern. And it's important to do this and mark it first, and then it prevents mistakes later. There are ways to correct mistakes, but it is a lot easier to do it this way. And now I fill in my color. I'm going to go with a wider tip marker for this, just for time. And I see that has my dot in it. And I'm going to go through and mark it. I like to mark mine with a pencil. And it does work best if you erase that pencil mark before you go over it. Because if you put a dot in with your Sharpie and then you go to color over it, sometimes that dot will show. That's why I like to do them in pencil. And now you fill in every area like that. And because I've already marked it through, I can concentrate on filling in my blocks of color and not worrying about making sure I'm in the right space. This is one of the easiest ones to do. Again, if you were doing your final, we would have measured everything out perfectly. And optical illusions work really well when they have that high contrast. So black and white always work really well with your optical illusions for that reason. You do want to make sure, even if you're doing a wide tip marker, that you're trying to keep your lines in the same direction. This works with other materials too. You could do this with color pencils. You could do this with Crayola markers. Crayons work well. Chalk pastels and oil pastels do not work well for this because they blend and smear. You want something that's going to give you a nice straight edge. I'm coming in and doing this. Because I'm working on Sharpie on a nice smooth paper, I'm not going to bleed as much. I don't have to worry about that. Watercolor paint works okay with this. Watercolor pencils work better because you have more control with the watercolor pencils. Remember, I like to do my dots with the pencils because if you do it with the Sharpie, that dot will show once you filled in your color. I like to use Expo markers with this too because they have that wide chisel tip and it doesn't take as long to fill it in. All right, there we go. There is our first one.